Week 2 is just around the bend for NFL DFS, and we are here to do a snake draft live on air and talk through this slate, which should be a pretty fun one for NFL DFS. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. That's right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here once again by JJ Zachariason and Brandon Gadula. JJ is the editor-in-chief of FanDuel and numberFire. Brandon is a managing editor. I talk to you both often enough where I feel like I should probably know your titles, but regardless, you are both here. JJ, week 2, how you doing?
I'm not doing as well as you are after that win in week 1.
1-0, baby, making it rain. I got a little nervous because I got an early lead in the 1 p.m. games and got a little cocky. I felt pretty good about the lineup as it stood. And then in the afternoon games, you came roaring back and kind of made me a little bit nervous. So you at least made me pay attention, which I was hoping not to do in the afternoon.
Yeah, no, I mean, you had the strongest lineup. You deserve to win
that. Brandon, your lineup, things happen. How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, if I haven't moved on since then, I'd be doing pretty bad. But I mean, I think it was a good process. I had Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. Saints Bucks scored a lot of points, but unfortunately very little from Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and Chris Godwin. So we also, I mean, I was in on Austin Eckler just from a volume standpoint. And
yeah.
So,
I mean, you couldn't really predict Austin Eckler suddenly getting one target.
Yeah. I mean, look, did you guys both double me up? Sure. But I'm here to win.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a new week, and week 2 is always fun, at least for me, because I like situations where we actually have data we can look at. We've got that now. We know what happened in week 1. We know who's roughly going to be on the field, and we also kind of have an idea of what play calling tendencies may look like, which teams could be in position to score some points. But this is a tough slate. We were kind of talking about this on Slack beforehand, where we don't really have a good idea of how to rank players straight up when it comes to the snake draft, because for salary cap, Brandon and I have talked through all the running backs. We know how we want to rank these guys, and we're pretty high on guys like Zeke Elliott and like Derrick Henry. But the problem is that it's hard to know where you put guys like Jonathan Taylor relative to those guys once there's no salary to account for. It's hard to know where you put Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook relative to those guys. So Brandon, you've had some time since then to try to sort that out. How are you viewing things for this week at running back, knowing here at least there's no salary cap to deal with?
Yeah, I had a few big questions. I mean, last week our question was who is the QB3? Unfortunately, I got the QB3 and picked Drew Brees, but I think there are 4 good quarterbacks this week, so I'm not overly concerned. I'm going to tip my hat a little bit with my strategy there. But I think a big question is, does Jonathan Taylor get drafted here?
Yeah,
we're probably looking at 9 running backs. We all like him from a value standpoint for a salary cap format, but from a strict snake draft, he's probably going to get drafted. But how soon do you go with Jonathan Taylor? So I've been struggling trying to make my top picks. I mean, Christian McCaffrey to me was the no-brainer 101 last week. Probably not this week.
A little different this week. JJ, I see you smiling. I know you want to talk about your boy, Jonathan Taylor. I think effectively the way that we're looking at this here is because we all value running backs in a half PPR scoring system, we're probably going to wind up drafting 9 running backs between the 3 of us, one for the flex spot. Do you think that Taylor can crack that top 9 with all else being equal?
I do, but I also want to say I think this plays into what Brandon was talking about last week, where a guy like Kenyon Drake last week was at a favorable price point. He was like $6,600 or whatever, and so from that standpoint, whenever you're building a DFS lineup, you can put him in your lineup very easily. But it's just that weird feeling of is he really in the elite tier, because you don't know because of where that tag is. So. With Jonathan Taylor, I understand the dissonance that is there and present in our minds because he's $5,800. But guys, Jonathan Taylor is an elite running back, and he's going to dominate this week.
All right, so JJ's taking Jonathan Taylor at 1.01. Yeah. We're going to dive into the draft here in just a bit, but after we get done with the draft, we are going to answer some questions on the FanDuel YouTube page, also from Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope. So if you have questions about this Week 2 NFL DFS main slate, get those questions in. We won't get to them right away. We're going to do the draft first, talk about our teams, the way we're feeling about different things. But then we will get to questions after that. So if you have questions about week 2 for NFL DFS, make sure you get those in the YouTube chat, Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, whatever it may be. We will take your questions here on the air after we do the draft. Guys, any final thoughts here before we dive on in and get this draft cracking?
No, you want to do this?
All right, so JJ's the last one to enter. So JJ will enter, and then we'll have 60 seconds on the clock before the snake draft begins. If you did not watch last week, the way this works is we have 60 seconds before the draft begins, and then things will start. It'll be a regular snake draft, and we will get to pick in that order. Waiting for it to pick. Has it started for you guys yet?
Jim, you're first.
Yeah, you're first.
Okay,
I am second, which is what I feared.
Update.
I feared third pick last week. I feared second pick this week.
I was afraid that it was going to log me out and I was going to have to like enter my password on the screen share, but we're good here. Okay, so I got 26 seconds. I have 1.01, which means that I do have to make that Christian McCaffrey decision that Brandon was alluding to, which makes me a little uncomfortable. One thing that's complicating factors here is that Tyron Smith may not play for Dallas, because I was probably going to go Zeke Elliott 1.01. But now Tyron Smith may not play. That changes things pretty drastically for me. No A.J. Brown for Tennessee also does kind of downgrade the entire offense. So you said Christian McCaffrey probably won't be the 1.01. Here he is. He is going to be the 1.01 in our draft here, given the Tyron Smith situation and given no A.J. Brown for Tennessee. Brandon's picking second. What are you going to do with this number 2 pick?
Well, I think Zeke was the 101. I think I just have to go
with the Mickey Mouse haircut. You're feeling it?
The crazy thing is, you guys think that you got your 101s, but I got the 101 in this draft. He actually fell to me at the 103, and that is Mr. Derrick Henry. Okay. I'm very into Derrick Henry this week. Ran a lot of pass routes last week. No AJ Brown. Maybe he gets targeted a little bit more. Should be a nice positive game script for them. So I'm going with Derrick Henry at the first part of the turn, and then I'm going to double up at running back and go with the rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh man, that's a good pick.
Yeah. So for me at pick 2, it was between. I assumed it was going to be Henry or McCaffrey because I had Zeke a little bit higher, so I just went Zeke. And then I was going to go Edwards-Helaire if he fell to me, which he did not. So I'm going to start with someone with about 500 targets last week and get Devontae Adams.
I'm going to go with the game stack here. I've got Christian McCaffrey, so I want to run it back with Mike Evans. I feel like that's the optimal way to play these things. And then I want a second running back here. Let's get rid of this. And it's between Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones. I feel pretty good about both of those games. I feel better about Dalvin Cook's projected target load. I know he didn't get a lot of work in week 1, but I feel like that should go up in week 2. He had that contract thing. So I'm going to go Dalvin Cook with my third pick. And he kind of falls into that same discussion about salaries, because if I can jump down to Zeke or Derrick Henry, I'm not going to get to Dalvin for a ton of lineups. But I think in this situation, Dalvin did fit pretty well there.
So just to talk through this, because JJ has 2 running backs, I'm going to wait. And I'm going to go with a double wide receiver lineup and go with Julio in a game that I love.
And he gets you stacked with Zeke?
Yeah, I feel pretty good with that. Again, JJ might pick his third running back here. He might not, but there are at least 2 running backs I like quite a bit. So I feel pretty solid in getting a running back in the next round.
Okay.
I'm going with my first one, DeAndre Hopkins, after his 44% target share in week 1 against a beatable secondary. Worry a little bit about that defensive line and what they might be able to do up front. And this is where, Brandon made the right choice, I think, in waiting a little bit for the running back position. I could go running back here, but I might end up leaning, I guess I'm going to go with Saquon.
Yeah. Saquon was going to be a tough decision for me.
Yeah. I agree.
It was going to be Saquon or probably Aaron Jones, honestly. And because Jim said he liked Aaron Jones, I'm going to cheat here. But I mean, he was going to be my next pick, I think.
Sure, buddy. Sure, I believe you.
Well, I mean, that would give me Devontae.
Who invited you to this? This is terrible.
I'm going to go with it because I like this game a little bit. The total's high. I'm fine with it. I think getting Devontae, getting Aaron Jones gets me exposure to possibly every touchdown for Green Bay.
Yeah.
So that could be that could come back to get me, but I think it was too hard to pass up on Aaron Jones there.
I would like some exposure to the Chiefs offense, so I am going to go with Tyreek Hill here because it's a tough matchup for him. I know that the Chargers cornerback situation is very, very good, so it's not a good matchup. However, I still feel pretty okay with going, which means that I have 2 wide receivers. I can choose between a wide receiver and a running back with this final pick, and I actually am going to go with Jonathan Taylor. He stacks well with Dalvin Cook. So I think that's a favorable situation for me. I considered waiting with that flex spot, but I know you had a flex spot left to fill, Brandon. So I could have waited on quarterback, or I could have gone quarterback there, but I didn't want to, let you dictate for me what I got from my flex spot.
Yeah, I think here I like a lot of quarterbacks, but he rates out with the best floor projection for me, best ceiling. I'm going to go with Lamar, play it safe because, I only need one more running back or wide receiver / tight end. And nobody stood out to me enough to pass up on Lamar.
Okay.
This is tough for me because I think I like Dak more than Kyler this week, but I have DeAndre Hopkins to get that stack.
Okay.
And so I think as a result of that, I'm going to go with Kyler, but I'm considering Dak because Jim's putting his arms up in the air.
I almost went Dak for the game stacks, and I have Dak higher as well.
Yeah, but I went Kyler just because
I was pumping my fist because I get the Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes stack. That's
and then with Kyler, so I need one more player in general. I think the safest bet here is probably Calvin Ridley, and what should be a shootout there. That's another reason why I considered going Dak and not even stacking him with Amari, but just running it back with Calvin Ridley. But I am considering Travis Kelce here too. And I'm actually just going to go with Travis Kelce.
Okay.
And get the Chiefs love with him and CEH.
So you went. Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, I threw a curveball at the end there. You guys all thought I was going to go Calvin Ridley, and then I decided to go with Travis Kelce instead.
So Brandon, you have to fill your flex.
Yes.
Okay, you got Kenyon Drake. I think I was between Drake, Sanders, and Taylor for my final pick, but I did decide to go with Taylor just because I think he stacked well with Dalvin Cook. And again, I do like that game quite a bit. Okay, so that wraps it up. The projections favor Brandon for the second straight week. Ice Cold Takes exposed. I don't actually know if that's the Twitter account because it frightens me. But Cold Takes exposed. Brandon, you have the top projected lineup. So talk to me through this lineup. Got Lamar, Zeke, Aaron Jones, Devontae, Julio. You got the Jones stack, and Kenyon Drake. What was your strategy there? What were the pain points for you going through the draft?
My strategy was to pick the best players on fourth and points. But like I said, I kind of had Zeke as the 101. And so I was anticipating it once I saw that I had the second pick that I was going to pick between McCaffrey or Derrick Henry. So I kind of had the default number 1 pick there. And then running back, I thought running it back, I should say, not running back. I thought that running back kind of fell off a little bit compared to wide receiver. So I felt good with the almost guaranteed volume for Devontae Adams. Mm-hmm. And then same thing in the third round with Julio Jones. It seemed like with the Zeke stack, just take the volume there because there were enough running backs who I felt good with coming back. I saw a bigger drop off at wide receiver. So that was kind of my first 3 picks process. I should have gone Dak for the stacks here, but it was really hard to pass up on Lamar.
Yeah, Rich Rebar of Sharp Football called Devontae Adams running or wide receiver Christian McCaffrey on their Pick 6 show on Roto-Grinders this week, and that's such an apt comparison because the floor is monstrous, but he also has this amazing ceiling. So kind of it's a situation where whatever the salary may be, you just kind of lock in Devontae no matter what, and it's a snake draft. You didn't have to pay a salary for him. You just had to draft him. So I think Devontae made a lot of sense. What about you, JJ? Kyler Murray, Derrick Henry, got the stack with DeAndre Hopkins, got a couple of Chiefs in there as well. What are the biggest decision points for you within this lineup?
I think that the difference in this week for me is going to be Kyler Murray and Travis Kelce going to outscore Dak Prescott and Calvin Ridley because those were the alternatives that I would have gone with. And, obviously I like the stack and that's why I went with Kyler, but at the same time, you still get a game stack with Dak and Calvin Ridley. It's not the biggest deal in the world, especially now in Dallas where we could see a scenario realistically where maybe only one of those wide receivers really blows up, maybe 2 of them a week, and one of them is just kind of set aside. So in a 3-man draft, it's really hard to pinpoint that absolute Dallas wide receiver that's going to blow up, which is
Right.
why I felt a little bit better about going Kelsey and his touchdown equity there after, not being targeted at a monstrously high rate. And more so the Chargers not really going down the field and throwing down the field against Houston, or the Chargers, the Chiefs not throwing down the field very frequently against Houston in week 1. I think that changes a little bit in this game. So I love CEH this week. I love Derrick Henry this week. Like I said, I think Derrick Henry is the top play this week straight up without looking at cost. So I love Derrick Henry, love CEH, and what they also said this week about CEH and him continuing to see the goal line work, which is really important. Right. And then Saquon is obviously just a volume play above all else. I mean, I don't expect him to necessarily have this monster game, but I think that he'll have a nice enough floor as my RB3 here to put together a decent score overall.
Yeah, volume gets you both floor and upside. Like, even with the most hideously inefficient rushing line of all time, Saquon still scored almost 10 points. Like, that's pretty good. And the matchup, not great, but honestly, I'll take that volume for sure. For me, everything kind of changed with the Tyron Smith injury. Like, I had the mindset going in that I wanted to stack the loving daylights out of the Falcons-Cowboys game. And maybe it's like an overreaction to change things that much based on one injury. But when that one injury is to Tyron Smith, like we saw last week with the Eagles, what happens when they don't have an all-class tackle? We know the Cowboys have depth issues at right tackle as well. Tyron Smith could wind up playing, in which case I would have made a lot of suboptimal picks. I would have taken Zeke 1.01. I would have taken Dak over Patrick Mahomes if you told me right now that Tyron Smith would play and be fully healthy. Did not practice yesterday, and it sounds like there is a decent chance he may not play on Sunday. So that forced me into a fairly different situation where I decided to go with McCaffrey at 1.01, decided to go with Mahomes to get that Tyreek Hill stack. I honestly would have considered Amari Cooper, like kind of being in that Tyreek Hill range if I knew that Tyron Smith were going to be healthy. I didn't know that though. So I think that if we were doing the snake draft Sunday morning and we knew that Tyron Smith were healthy, I would have made a couple of different selections. But I feel really good about Mike Evans. I feel really good about the volume I will get out of my running backs. I just got to hope that Nyheim Hines is, like chilling by the water cooler a little bit on Sunday so we don't get pilfered with Jonathan Taylor there. Okay, so our snake draft is in the books. We'll see how things play out throughout the day on Sunday, and we'll be back here next week as well to recap things. Let's get to some questions now. Starting off over on YouTube, again, we're trying to take a DFS focus or a snake draft focus with these questions. I've seen a couple of season-long questions. JJ will answer season-long questions on Sunday. That'll be on at noon Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Most of the questions will come via YouTube, though. So if you want your questions answered, I would encourage you to subscribe to YouTube and make sure you go there on Sunday at noon Eastern. First question over on YouTube, Leb DJ3. Do you think it's good to do multiple snake drafts versus one? Also better to do them earlier in the week or closer to lock? And I think that's a very interesting discussion because we get this similar situation when it comes to season-long drafts, because if you draft later in the season, you will get you're not going to be as subject to as many injuries, but also you may not have as many inefficiencies if you draft later in the year. Like eventually, we're going to catch on to guys like maybe Antonio Gibson, Jonathan Taylor, et cetera, and their stocks will go up. So I think you can kind of view this both ways. Personally, I'd rather get in on the ground floor. I know things changed for me late in the week in this situation with the Tyron Smith injury, but I like doing them early because I feel pretty confident in the amount of research I do earlier in the week. Brandon, what about you? What's your philosophy here? Would you rather do a snake draft earlier in the week or later on as you get more information?
I would rather do it earlier because Jim and I do a recap show every Monday morning going over every game. And so I know what my instant reactions are and I know what the underlying data says. So I feel like I can react pretty well. So I would say earlier in the week as opposed to later in the week, especially because by later in the week, we all in the industry talk up certain guys and we kind of know what consensus is. So I would rather go early in the week if you are a heavy researcher.
And JJ, I want to send the other question over to you. He was asking about they were asking multiple snake drafts, and this is kind of something that does translate to both season long and DFS. Are you trying to limit your sprawl, I guess, or do you want to give yourself multiple cracks at things, whether it be DFS, snake drafts, season long? Are you a one league type of person, or do you want to do multiple?
I want to do multiple. I mean, not just because it's fun and I'm a semi-degenerate, but also, it's important to look at fantasy football sort of in the same way that you would look at a stock portfolio, where, if you're going all in on one player, that it's a very, very high variance way of looking at things. Whereas, if you limit exposure, and this goes for best ball too, but if you limit exposure to certain players, to the 20 to 30% range, then, as long as you have, a higher exposure to players that you like, in the long run, you should win out. The other thing, though, to keep in mind, this is also definitely tied to season long leagues. But when you do look at your exposures, and even from the standpoint of DFS, you can make this argument. You don't want you don't want as crazy high exposure for guys who are either expensive or early round picks in season long, only because that's a higher valued pick, and it's a high. There's more money being spent. It's a lot easier to swallow a $5,000 player who ends up busting. You can still
Boston Scott.
Yeah, you're right. You can still cash with that lineup. You can still be fine in season long if every single one of your season long lineups has an 8th or 9th round pick that doesn't do anything. But if every single one of your season long lineups has Joe Mixon, and through the first 2 games of the season things haven't been looking very good, I'm not tilting at all. If you have Joe Mixon across all your teams, then all of a sudden you're in rough shape because the opportunity cost is so high. So that's sort of the way that I look at things.
Yeah, I think that for me, I like it. I like having multiple teams because I make really dumb decisions, and I would like to have additional cracks after I make said dumb decisions. Like last year when I had 30% exposure to Marcus Mariota in best ball, and I think like 40% to Cam Newton, I was still okay. Like it was really bad, but hey, whatever. It was still fine at the end of the day. Bethany Peter says, "Hey guys, hello Bethany. Thank you for tuning in." Casey says, "Moss, Judy, or Miller in full PPR." So again, we'll have the start sit question on Sunday, but we do have a question in here about Zach Moss, and Zach Moss is facing Miami. Brandon, we don't like split backfields in DFS. Is Zach Moss on the radar for you, or are you avoiding because things are still split there between him and Devin Singletary?
In season long, Zach Moss is definitely a viable play. In DFS, I'm not there yet. We talk all the time about the importance of snap rate and predictable snaps and predictable touches. So with like 12 plus running backs who are in probably better spots or more predictable spots for DFS, I'm not really interested in Zach Moss for week 2.
Jerry Jeudy is facing your Pittsburgh Steelers, but Cortland Sutton and KJ Hamler may be able to play. How you feeling about Jerry Jeudy in week number 2 after you saw pretty decent volume in week number 1?
I mean, not phenomenally great. I know that we saw, Darius Slayton have a decent enough game against Pittsburgh, but it's going to be a tough matchup throughout the season, even though, if there is a weakness in the Steelers defense, it would be their secondary and it would be their cornerback play. So, I think that Jeudy can be fine-ish, but I worry about the ceiling. I worry about the ceiling for that entire Denver offense. The Steelers generated a ton of pressure in week 1. They're going to generate pressure every single week. So there's a little bit of a worry there. I'm not ultra high on Jerry Jeudy.
So because Casey was nice enough to tune in for the broadcast, JJ, if you had to choose one here between Zach Moss, Jerry Jeudy, and Anthony Miller, where are you going there?
I'm a little bit concerned about Miller's snap rate in week 1 and them not using him. And I know that he had that big touchdown at the end of the game, and I'm an Anthony Miller stan. But I think the safest play here is Zach Moss and a positive game script. The nice thing is Devin Singletary did out-target him, but Zach Moss saw the goal line work. And in a game where you have a positive game script like this, I doubt we see Josh Allen run the ball as much as he did in week 1. And in this positive script, they should see, a run-heavy script. And if they're running the ball more, that means that there's going to be more run touchdown equity. And that's why I like Moss in this contest.
All right, Casey. So we're riding with Zach Moss for this week. And make sure you tune in once again Sunday at noon Eastern to ask all of your start-sit questions for week number 2. DJ over on Facebook, Yeah, Boston Scott was a bust last week. Yep, I'm fully aware. 60% exposure to Boston Scott, but it was still a good day, so it was all right. Any other thing from DJ? He was asking about Henry Ruggs. He asked, should he drop Ruggs to get Corey Davis? Brandon, no AJ Brown. So are you going to Corey Davis in week 2?
I like Corey Davis. I like Henry Ruggs though too if he's healthy. So that's a tough one for DFS. I think you probably just lean Corey Davis for the guaranteed volume. I don't know how healthy Henry Ruggs is, but Henry Ruggs really promising volume. It would be hard for me to drop Henry Ruggs because we've all been waiting for the Corey Davis breakout, and I don't know if it's going to stick. I think Henry.
Yeah. I don't know if I can actually make my joke still about the Titans where like if Corey Davis gets a 30% target share that equates to 3 targets, given that they threw like 50 times on Monday, like maybe that joke may be antiquated now, but we shall see if that carries over. That is all the time that Brandon and JJ have for today. We're going to do our MLB DFS Q&A here in just 1 second. But Brandon, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spreading your knowledge once again today. Where can people find you on Twitter?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13.
JJ, where can people find you on Twitter? And any final thoughts for you before we send it off to week 2?
Derrick Henry week, and I'm at late round QB.
Are we allowed to talk up Derrick Henry as numberFire people, given how much he has burned several of us in the past?
True,
me specifically in DFS all the time. Like, am I allowed to say things about him that are positive?
It's Derrick Henry week.
Derrick Henry week. All right. Make sure you follow JJ and Brandon on Twitter, and make sure you check out JJ's stream at noon Eastern on Sunday to ask all those final start-sit questions. Stick around, though, if you're playing MLB DFS for tonight, because we'll be back in about a minute to answer your MLB DFS questions for tonight. We got a Coors Field game that I want to stack. So we'll answer those questions here in just 1 second. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. And MLB DFS, thank you to those of you who stayed tuned in after our snake draft live here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages. Now it's time to talk some MLB. Only about a week left in the regular season. It's only about a week left of these MLB DFS Q&As. It's been a fun ride so far, but we get to go out on a high note here because we've still got a really fun slate for tonight. We got a game at Coors Field that I very much want to stack because it's the Dodgers against Ryan Castellani, and I think that the Dodgers in a really good spot there. So let's break this thing down. Welcome back into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. Once again, my name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to answer your questions for the next 25 minutes as we get set for tonight's slate of MLB DFS. Lock is at 7:10 tonight, 5 additional minutes to ruin those lineups before those lineups do lock. If you have questions about tonight's slate, we can talk pitchers, we can talk stacks, we can talk one-offs, value plays to help you get in those Dodgers, whatever it may be. Get those questions in on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope pages. We'll answer them live here on air. We can talk process for MLB DFS as well. So make sure you get those questions in. We'll answer them live here on air to get you set for tonight's slate, and hopefully things go well for us tonight. First question is over on YouTube, and it comes from Bryce. Thoughts on Chris Bassett? This is a good question because Bassett, I think that for tonight, you're not going to find a lot of strikeouts available on this slate. So what that does is it allows us to use some pitchers we would not normally use. Maybe pitchers who have more talent than DFS skill, because talent is valuable for sure. I don't know how I got Ryan Castellani's numbers all jacked up like this. That's strange. But either way, I think that for me, it does change things when there are fewer strikeouts on the slate. It makes me more willing to use guys who may have more questionable strikeout rates. That could put Chris Bassett more in play. But I think that there are better options. If we are going to lower our strikeout standards, I'm going to go elsewhere. Like, I think that Zach Greinke and Kyle Hendricks are going to be the two guys I turn to if I'm lowering my strikeout standards. Now, you can easily counter that by saying, hey, Greinke's $9,500, Hendricks is $9,300. We got Chris Bassett down at $7,800. So that's a pretty big discount. But the other thing, too, is that Bassett is only $400 less than Chris Paddock. And I like Chris Paddock because Chris Paddock actually can get strikeouts. So I think that you're on the right path here, Bryce, with looking at Chris Bassett, because he is more in play on today's slate than on most slates because there are fewer strikeouts to be had tonight than what we usually get. However, if I'm lowering my standards for strikeouts, I'd rather go elsewhere. And if I'm going down to the salary range, I prefer Chris Paddock. So you're on the right wavelength there for sure. The matchup also not the best either for Chris Bassett. Alvin, any interest in the Yankees? They are on fire. Yes, they are. It's been pretty fun to watch, honestly, like with all the home runs. I am a fan of strikeouts and dingers, and the Yankees have provided plenty of the latter over the past couple of days. They've been a really fun offense. The concern I would have about being in on the Yankees today has nothing to do with the matchup. The matchup is totally fine. Martin Perez does not get a lot of strikeouts, and you want to get strikeouts against the Yankees because if you don't strike him out, they're probably going to do some serious damage. So you need strikeouts against the Yankees. Perez probably will not get that. However, the weather in Boston tonight is not good for hitting. We see the wind is blowing in, but it's also just 60 degrees. And for hitting, we want to target games that have a lot of heat. That is not the case in Fenway for today. It's actually a pretty radical slate from a temperature perspective, which is why I always have the temperature here. Let's go to the hitter tab. If we look at the temperature in Boston for today, you'll see that it actually turns up as being red. Just 60 degrees, one of the cooler games on this slate. It's not the coldest, but that does downgrade the situation here for the Yankees hitters. So I would say the Yankees are a very good option. Like the Yankees are always a good option. The Yankees always have a chance to go off. However, you're kind of paying Coors Field salaries for a team that's not at Coors Field in a game that is 24 degrees cooler, and also it doesn't have the same atmospheric advantages that Coors Field does have. So the Yankees are a good stack for today. However, I am lower on them than the Dodgers for tonight. So as a result of that, the Yankees wind up getting shoved a bit down my list. Question over on Facebook. Jules says, you guys are completely missing running back Taylor in Indianapolis. I actually had him on my team. So if you're watching the snake draft, I had him on my team. If you're saying that we are too high on him, let me know why, because I'd be interested to hear that for sure as well. As always, if you're just joining the stream, we have a snake draft every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern with myself, JJ Zachariason, and Brandon Gadula, getting you set for NFL DFS. Always a lot of fun. Just wrapped that up a couple of minutes ago. So if you want to check out the replay later on, pretty fun discussion, I think, about week number 2 in the NFL. But Jonathan Taylor, good for overall DFS, and also someone I did use in my snake draft. But Jules, if I'm too high on him, let me know. Alvin, does Wood starting take you off of the Rockies? It sounds like it's going to be a bullpen game because they had said earlier that Alex Wood wasn't going to start again this year, and suddenly they double back on that. So I guess my assumption is that it's going to be a bullpen game. And actually, yeah, it does like the blurb here on Fangraphs seems as if it agrees with that sentiment. Mitchell White, wasn't really someone I was like crazy inclined to stack against to begin with. So I kind of think it's a pretty neutral situation, Alvin. I would say the Rockies are still a good option because obviously Alex Wood is not a full-time starter for a reason. It's not just health. There are other factors. There's been some effectiveness concerns the past couple of years. So I would still say you can go at the Rockies. It's just kind of hard to know which Rockies you want to use because Wood is a lefty and they'll probably have some righties out there. I think it does increase the incentive for us to go at batters who can hit both righties and lefties. So I would say it does maybe alters which hitters we want to use within the Rockies. And I still have them well below the Dodgers, but I think it's pretty much status quo for me with Wood starting instead of White because I do assume this will be a bullpen game. Bryce says, I was going to go with Paddock. Last time he left in the second inning, that's why I'm hesitant to use him. Bryce, I don't blame you. Like, those things stink. It's terrible. Like, I had Jacob deGrom a couple nights ago, and he had that hamstring spasm or whatever it was. That's not fun. I don't want to deal with that. The thing with Paddock, though, is it's an ankle, and it sounds like he got pushed back a couple of days to let that ankle rest up a bit more, and given the long-term appeal of Chris Paddock, it sounds to me as if they're actually pretty okay letting him go out there. I don't know if they'd actually put Paddock in a bad spot. So I am in on Paddock. I know the results have been bad this year, and the injury is a concern, and that's why his salary is down $8,200. So I also, Bryce, understand if you don't want to go to Paddock, I think that's a fully justifiable stance, and like there is a lot of risk here. So again, I totally understand where you're coming from on not wanting to go Paddock. And it's totally okay if you don't want to go Paddock. The reason I want to go Paddock is if you look at his pitch mix here, you're going to see that his curveball has effectively been shelved. It was a pitch he was using more earlier in the year, and it was getting rocked. His expected weighted on base average against that curveball was like 441, according to Baseball Savant. So over the past 5 starts, he's basically said, nah, thanks, and he's gotten rid of the curveball. He's gone more to his fastball and his changeup, which does make him a 2-pitch pitcher. But at the same time, if those 2 pitches are good, that could be okay. Chris Paddock, in those 5 starts with fewer curveballs, a 3.29 skill interactive ERA, 30% strikeout rate, and a 5% walk rate. He is still letting up hard contact. So, Bryce, that kind of does further validate your hesitancy because there's a lot of risk here with Chris Paddock if he's going to get hurt, if he's going to let up hard contact. There are legitimate concerns with Chris Paddock that do lower his floor. But I like it. I think that he has a path to upside with all these strikeouts. I think that he lets me get upside elsewhere in my lineup because of the batters he allows me to use. So I think that your hesitancy is justified, and I totally get it. But for me, I'm willing to take that risk because I think there is a lot of upside in Chris Paddock. So that's why I will go there. Mateo, how do you like the Padres at home, especially Jorge Ona? Okay, so the Padres are facing Yusei Kikuchi. Kikuchi has been weird this year. He's kind of similar to Paddock, actually, because his peripherals are a lot better than his results are. The peripherals I had on Kikuchi's sheet there were his full season numbers, and his full season, like, his peripherals are good. Got a skill interactive ERA under 4, but as you can see here, the skill interact or the actual results have not been as good. Hard contact, pretty low, doesn't allow a ton of ground ball or a ton of fly balls. So I'm actually not super high on this Padres offense for today. So I think, to me, I am okay avoiding them, especially because, like, the Padres don't tend to be super low salary. Let's check out their salaries here because I honestly didn't consider them all that much this morning just because I do have a lot of respect for Kikuchi, and I'm not super inclined to use batters facing it. But I mean, it does help that the Padres are a very good offense. Ona specifically, $2,500. So, like, you're not shuffling over a ton of salary. But I think that for me, I'd rather go elsewhere with my value outfielders. I think that the Reds probably provide us some. I have not checked out their lineup yet to see if the value guys I expected to be in there are actually indeed in there. But I think I'd rather go elsewhere. I mean, because Kikuchi's had the bad results this year, those could continue. So, Mateo, if you feel really good about the Padres, I would encourage you to go at them because, like, you can justify it for sure. They just don't fit my personal process, and it's not a stack that I will be going to myself. Cody, rank the pitchers. Okay, so if I'm going a single entry lineup, I'm going to go Chris Paddock. We talked about him before, why I like him. It is risky because we've got the bad results. We've got the injury to the ankle. There is risk there, but I think there is a path to upside as well. So I'm going to put Chris Paddock number 1 if I'm filling out a single lineup. I think that I can get some Dodgers even if I go with Tyler Glasnow. And this is kind of Cody, this is my whole mindset of pitcher tonight is who can help me get the Dodgers. I think I can get some if I go with Tyler Glasnow. And from a skills perspective, Tyler Glasnow to me is far and away the best pitcher on this slate. This is, I think, a 5-start sample. Yeah, 5 starts for Glasnow with more curveballs. He has a 2.87 skill interactive ERA. His strikeout rate is 38%, and nobody else on the slate outside of Chris Paddock has a relevant sample strikeout rate higher than 27%. So Glasnow is like head and shoulders above the rest of the pack from an expected strikeout perspective. That to me says I should use Tyler Glasnow, even if it forces me to get a bit creative with the rest of my lineup. So Tyler Glasnow is going to be number 2 for me. Kyle Hendricks is my number 3 pitcher. He's in good weather tonight. Wrigley Field has the wind blowing in. It's also very cold for the Cubs versus the Twins. So Kyle Hendricks, I think $9,300, a very fair salary for him. Zach Greinke is up there. I'm also willing to consider, I would consider Logan Webb facing the Athletics. I think that Webb has shown a bit more strikeout upside recently. I'd consider Jordan Montgomery. So I would say, like, there are options if you don't want to go with Chris Paddock. Again, fully justifiable if you don't want to. I don't blame you. There is a lot of risk there. But for me, I'm going to go Paddock 1, Glasnow 2, Hendricks 3, Greinke 4. I would probably go Jordan Montgomery over Logan Webb. He went I guess I'd go Webb, actually. Webb has gone 90 pitches more recently. I don't know if Montgomery has gone 90 at all so far this year. Actually, his pitch count, he did go 95 in his second start. Dummy. 84 2 starts ago. Hasn't gone long recently, so I'd go Webb over Montgomery for tonight. Let's check out this lineup here, because I've got Glasnow in there. And I want to see if I can build a lineup where I use Glasnow and also get exposure to the Dodgers. The Dodgers lineup, I don't believe, is out yet, so we can't actually tinker with them. We can tinker with the Cincinnati Reds. Cincinnati Reds are my favorite lower salaried stack. Ooh, the Dodgers lineup isn't. Okay, that'll be fun. We'll check that out here in a second. But the Reds are my favorite lower salaried stack today. They're facing Jonathan Stever. Stever is interesting because he's 23 years old, and he's only made 1 start in the majors. So we don't have a lot of data on him. And when he did pitch last year, he got really good results and got a lot of strikeouts. The problem is that those good results and those strikeouts came in high A, and now he's jumping up to the majors. If we look at his first start, we see a 9.6% swinging strike rate. That's not overpowering. Went 3 2/3, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. Not a big ground ball guy. I think I can stack against him, and the Reds do give me a good bit of value. So let's go in here, check out this Reds offense, and see how much flexibility we can give ourselves and see if we can get to Glasnow paired with the Dodgers. All right, we'll talk about this in the solo shot this morning. Shogo Akiyama is in play. However, because of his lack of upside with the muted power, I want to try to not go there if I can avoid it. I will go there because he's $2,300 batting leadoff and he can steal bases, but I'd like to potentially avoid it if I possibly can. So to me, I think that we start with these guys right here. Mike Moustakas, Jesse Winker. I also don't hate Brian Goodwin. Brian Goodwin, when he was with the Angels earlier this year, he kind of forced Justin Upton out of the lineup. He played really well. He hit the ball well, and he kind of earned himself additional playing time. This year against righties, Goodwin has a 37% hard hit rate, a 39% fly ball rate. He does strike out quite a bit, which is true for a lot of pitchers, but I'm also not necessarily expecting a ton of strikeouts out of Stever. So I actually do think that Goodwin is in play. If I am choosing between Goodwin and Akiyama, I'm actually kind of okay making Goodwin the selection. Now, that may seem stupid because Goodwin's batting 7th, whereas Akiyama is batting leadoff. And we do want to value place in the batting order when making our decisions. But as you can see here, Goodwin has a path to upside, a couple of home runs within his past couple of games. That's a good thing. Akiyama, the only source of upside there is via stolen bases. So if I'm choosing between Brian Goodwin and Shogo Akiyama and I can just pick one, I honestly might be inclined to just go with Goodwin there. We've seen Akiyama get into 20 FanDuel points twice so far this year. Goodwin has done so 3 times. So I'm okay with either, honestly. Again, I might need to go down there at times, but I think if I'm choosing one, I'm okay making that one guy be Brian Goodwin, despite the fact he is so low in the batting order. We got one more spot to fill in here for this red stack, so we're choosing between Eugenio Suarez, Nicholas Castellanos, and Joey Votto. All of them are obviously going to be options. And again, we could just go Akiyama and let ourselves go nuts at Coors Field with the Dodgers. But if we're going to pick one of these studs, there's no Nick Senzel today, which is kind of disappointing. I was actually interested in using him because he hit 6th against the righty. I think it was yesterday that he did so. So I was interested in using Nick Senzel, but obviously we don't get that situation here. I'm guessing I'm going to go Castellanos. Let's see here, though. Castellanos, 46% hard hit rate, 39% fly ball rate. Suarez been playing a lot better recently. The results have finally come around for him. 30% hard hit rate, a 48% fly ball rate, 29% strikeout rate. Votto, 34, 39, and 16. I like the profile most of Castellanos, and Castellanos is $3,200. So if I do this red stack where I have Castellanos, Winker, Goodwin, and Moustakas, I have $3,375 left. I think I can make that work with a Dodger stack at Coors Field. Let's take a look here at this lineup. Ooh, okay. We actually got some pretty big helps here because we have Edwin Rios batting 7th. We have Gavin Lux batting 8th. That's going to make things a lot easier when it comes to stacking at Coors Field. I don't really want Austin Barnes personally, but let's look at the Dodgers numbers against righties here and look at Rios specifically and Lux. Lux, I know, is totally fine. Like, I'm very okay locking him in. Good numbers for him in the minors previously. He's had good peripherals. So Lux for sure on the table for me. Edwin Rios, this is a small sample, but a 53% hard hit rate against righties and a 47% fly ball rate, 24% strikeout rate. I have not seen the salary in Edwin Rios because I was expecting him not to be in the order. So if I had to guess, I think we might get him for $2,900 at Coors Field. Let's check this, though. He is, oops, I selected the Reds. Dummy. Okay, we'll go to all teams here and let's select Rios. He is $3,100. Okay, sweet. So once we do that, we're actually sitting pretty here. So you can make it work with Tyler Glasnow paired with the Los Angeles Dodgers, even without using Akiyama. Again, I'm okay with Akiyama. He's a totally okay person to use. And I think that I would be willing to go that way at times. However, I prefer Goodwin, I think, by a tiny bit straight up. And if I don't need a $300 salary savings, I am okay riding with these guys here. So I think the Dodgers lineup actually does help us out quite a bit. May have caught a break there with Edwin Rios being in there. Let's see what Gavin Lux's salary. Whoopsies. I'm clicking all over the place here. Gavin Lux's salary is, let's put the X in there. There we go. $3,300. Okay, cool. So I'm going to reload this page here so we can get the Dodgers lineup loaded into this, and then we'll build one with Chris Paddack loaded in as our pitcher. Because again, Chris Paddack, I think if I'm going single entry, probably going to be my number one guy. So let's build one with Chris Paddack in there, a pitcher in a Dodger stack. Now that we know that Rios and Lux are in there, because that does increase our flexibility with our hitters quite a bit. Let's see if the Dodgers lineup has been loaded in, and it has. All right, perfect. So let's go. Actually, I should put Paddack in there first. Let's go Paddack at pitcher. If we use Paddack in the Dodgers, we're probably still going to have to find a value stack, but we know with the Reds, we actually can do that. So I actually think this is fine. We have $3,375 left on average for our hitters here. That'll work as well. Let's go. I want Rios in there first because I feel really good about the salary we get on him. I did not see that Chris Taylor is batting third. Wow, okay. Chris Taylor batting third. Against righties so far this year, 35% hard hit rate. Not as many fly balls as you like, but he's had good results. So I would say we go Rios. We go Chris Taylor. Might not even need to go Gavin Lux, honestly. With all these guys here, I'm going to go AJ Pollock. I think I can make this work, and we're going to go Mookie Betts because I heart Mookie and refuse to pass him up. Let's see how much trouble we're in if we do this. Okay, I'm going to do a guessing game here. I'm going to say $2,700 left on average per hitter. It is $2,975. All right, so we can actually make that work really easily with a Red stack. The one issue we might run into is that a lot of the Reds guys I wanted to use were outfield eligible, like Winker's there, Castellanos is there, Goodwin is there as well. Akiyama is also outfield, so it's kind of like forced into Moustakas and Votto, but that's fine. I don't mind those guys. I could go from Pollock to Gavin Lux if I want to free up an additional outfield spot, but regardless, stacking the Dodgers with Chris Paddack, very easy for tonight. I think that Edwin Rios might be among the best plays on this slate, given that he's batting 7th, given that he can hit the ball pretty hard. I'm kind of into it. So Edwin Rios, with the way this lineup broke, going to be a really fun play for today. Let's check here to make sure he hasn't been leaving for pinch hitters all that often, just to make sure that he's getting enough volume. He had 4 plate appearances there. He had 3 there, 4. So yeah, he's getting about 4 plate appearances per game, hitting some dingers. So Edwin Rios, to me, I think is one of the better plays on tonight's slate, given his spot in the order and given the salary he carries for this Dodgers team. Miles, Mike Williams or Juju and Hines and Robinson. We'll answer this because why not, Miles? It's a Friday. I will go Juju over Mike Williams, but both are good plays. I will go with Nyheim Hines because I feel better about that team scoring points than I do about the Jaguars scoring points. Unless it's Allen Robinson, in which case you go A-Rob, but if it's James Robinson, Nyheim Hines. Alvin, where do the Rockies rank as a stack? Very good question. Okay, so let's go through here. Actually, I want to see the Rockies lineup before I answer this because that might influence things. Josh Fuentes tends to be pretty low salaried. It's not a super strong lineup, though, I guess. Ryan McMahon batting 9th. I guess that's probably because they want to try to have him avoid facing Alex Wood, if I had to guess. Wood goes 2 innings, might not have to face McMahon. It's not the strongest lineup by any means, so I would say the one-offs on the Rockies, like Story and Arenado, grade out pretty well. Fuentes will grade out pretty well. But from a full team stacking perspective, they're okay. I think that the way I think about it is this, Alvin. Would I rank the Rockies higher than the Yankees? Because they're kind of more the apples to apples comparison there because they're both higher salaried. I might stack the Yankees over the Rockies knowing what this Rockies lineup looks like. I mentioned before, they're like, hey, I'm not super high on the Yankees because I want to go elsewhere. But that's mostly because I was comparing them to the Dodgers. If I'm comparing them to the Rockies, I actually do kind of think that the Yankees would grade out better there. So I think to me, it's Dodgers 1. I would say the Reds are 2. Let's see what other stacks I like for today that we have not mentioned yet. I think that Cleveland's in play. It's pretty bad weather in Detroit for hitting, so I'm not ecstatic about using them, but I do think that they are in play. I mentioned before, I like the Reds a pretty decent amount. I think those are probably the main ones for me from a stacking perspective for tonight. So I do like the Rays too. See if the Rays lineup is out. I think it's kind of different situations here because the salaries are so different. Among the studs, I'd rank the higher salaried stacks. I'd put the Rockies 3rd. I'd say Dodgers 1, Yankees 2, Rockies 3. I'd rank the value stacks to be the Reds 1, followed by the Rays 2. Let's check out this Rays lineup here and see if there's anything fun. There's no Rays lineup yet. What on earth? Disappointing. Okay, so no Rays lineup for us to geek out about. So unfortunately, we can't dive into them. But did go through a Red stack, and I think that hopefully that was helpful at least to see. I think that's where Manuel asked, "Can you show how you like the Reds on FanGraphs?" Okay, so let's do this here. Let me show you the Reds numbers against righties. Again, this is all via fangraphs.com. You can actually make custom leaderboards, and this is here. I want to see the numbers I use to dictate my decisions in DFS are hard hit rate, fly ball rate, strikeout rate, and walk rate. So if you go down here, you can create custom leaderboards, and I'd recommend making your own. Then you can save the URL, you can bookmark it, and it'll automatically pull up that same stuff every day. So I would recommend this, Manuel, if you're using FanGraphs a lot. I would recommend creating custom leaderboards so you can choose the stats you want to see and have them pop up here. So we do this with the Reds. These are their numbers against righties so far this year. Castellanos, again, a really high hard hit rate, good fly ball rate, and among the studs, he's going to be number 1 for me. Mike Moustakas hasn't had great results this year, slightly above average against righties, but he still had hard contact, still had enough fly balls, not striking out a ton. That's why I like Moustakas as being good value play for tonight. Mentioned Brian Goodwin. Pretty good batted ball numbers here too. The strikeouts higher than I would like them to be, but still acceptable at least. Jesse Winker's had amazing results this year. I wish he'd hit more fly balls, but when you can get guys like Winker, Moustakas, and Goodwin who have a combination of at least decent results with good peripherals, that's hard to pass up in the value range. So I would say that's why I like them for tonight. They're all value hitters. Castellanos is, I would say, under-salaried is the way that I'd phrase it. He's not a value at 32, but he's under-salaried. So I would say that's where I'm going with the Reds. But again, Manuel, I think that if you're playing around with FanGraphs a lot, I'd really recommend these custom leaderboards. They are huge in helping me streamline my process for DFS. Final question here coming from Brad over on Facebook. Best pitcher tonight for the value? To me, that is Chris Paddock. Again, I like the upside here. The risk is very, very high because the results been bad. And again, he's coming off that ankle injury, but he has a path to upside. He has a path to 50 or 60. FanDuel points just hit 50 3 starts ago, so he can do that, and I value that quite a bit. I would also say, like Brad, like Glasnow doesn't fit as a value pitcher, but he is lower salary than he should be. When I do my research for the solo shot in the morning, most of my research is done before salaries come out, and I kind of expected Glasnow to be higher salary than he was. So although Glasnow is not a value pitcher, I think he is cheaper than he should, or lower salary than he should be. So I'd put Glasnow in that discussion too, despite the fact that he's not a value. But if you're looking for a traditional value play, Chris Paddack is my guy for tonight. That is all the time that we have for today, but want to thank you all for tuning in, both for the snake draft and also for the MLB DFS Q&A. We are doing this once again next week. As always, we have shows at 3:30 on Tuesday and Friday. We have the waiver wire Q&A on Tuesday. We have the snake draft on Friday. MLB DFS Q&A at 4 p.m. Eastern. Next week is the final week for the MLB DFS Q&A. So make sure you're subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages to get all that goodness as it goes live. Manuel asked if you're able to watch the replay later again. Yes, Manuel, if you go to the FanDuel YouTube page, you can find a full replay of this that we posted right away. Go to FanDuel or go to YouTube and search. It's the username is FanDuel Videos. It'll be up there. If you go there, you'll find the full replay from beginning to end. Would recommend checking that out for sure if you missed the beginning and want to hear thoughts on guys like Paddack or more about the Reds there as well. So again, make sure you check out the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages. If you have questions for me, I am on Twitter at JimSannes, JimSannes. Big thank you to my colleagues, JJ Zacharyson and Brandon Gadula, for joining me earlier for the snake draft. And a thank you as well to Calvin Theobald for sticking it out with me, not just for the snake draft, not just for the DFS Q&A, but for this entire week. Cal has been a busy man, so thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. I hope things go well for you tonight in MLB DFS. Good luck. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.